Good evening, everybody.
Good
I think we're
evening.
live now, Pat.
Yeah. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about the rocky start.
Right, tonight we're going to discuss the alternative for Deutschland, what's happening in Germany, and its implications for the whole of Europe and for Britain. We're going to get to the bottom of it. It's a big issue. There's big things happening there.
Yeah, let me just explain to the viewers that John.lawwrence can't make it tonight, so myself and Paul Rimmer are stepping in to take this show. As Paul said, we're going to be looking at the rise of AfD in Germany. It's been a pretty bad attack on one of their senior officials. Is that true to say, Paul?
Well, they're being demonized now. They're being the success, recent success, has been astonishing. They're like a rocket heading for the stars, you know. They're regularly polling now at around 22% in the polls, which when in Germany you've got 5 major parties, they're actually in second place, just behind the CDU, CSU, which is a combined party, the Christian Democrats. And they're the conservatives who have held power in Germany for most of the post-war period. So they've overtaken the ruling party, the Social Democrats, and they're taking a lot of support from the Greens. The Greens in Germany are in coalition with the Socialists in power, and they're imposing 2 things: the net zero agenda, the green agenda, which is crippling German industry, and is imposing huge cost on individual people. I mean, it's so extreme in Germany; it's just crazy. They're outlawing boilers. The cost of fuel has surged; it's gone through the roof. So there's been this month in Germany. There's been record number of bankruptcies of companies, because Germany is the last real manufacturing powerhouse of Europe. But these green energy policies are pushed the cost of fuel through the roof. Energy, and the crippling German industry. And so what the German industry is doing is the deindustrializing. They're moving their plants out of Germany because the taxes are just so steep. It's insane what's happening. Now, not only have they got that, the net zero agenda in Germany, they're also militantly in favor of the war against Russia, the Greens. They're the Soros party, really. They're linked with the American deep state, and they're fully in support of this war against Russia, which has disturbed a lot of Germans. I mean, especially in East Germany, they had a good relationship with the Russians. Don't forget, Putin himself was based in East Germany for a long time. And this is another factor that's leading to the rise of the AfD. East Germany. They call it nostalgia for East Germany. I mean, East Germany has only been part of this United Germany, obviously, for 30 years, 32 years. So their memory of life in East Germany is very vivid. And in comparison with what they thought was going to be utopian in the West, they much prefer their life in the East. They had a strong border, which kept the immigrants out. They had social peace and harmony. There was very little crime in East Germany, if any. They had a very successful social security system. There was a lot of opportunities for people work-wise, and there was good pensions, good education was available free to university level, and they were highly educated people, East Germans, and they also had a great sense of social cohesion. And they're looking back on what they had in East Germany, and they're facing up to the reality of life in modern Germany, which has been saturated with these migrants, especially from the Middle East, Arabs and North Africans, and now Black Africans. Of course, the Germans are very orderly people. They're very traditional people, and they're very conservative people. So when these immigrants come in and disturb the status quo, the Germans are very traumatized by that. And that's heightened in the East Germany because they haven't been prepared for it over the decades as we have. So they're actually now the hardcore support of the AfD. In some regions of East Germany, like Saxony and Thuringia, Brandenburg, Vorpommern, and Alsace, the AfD are actually in the lead. And there's elections coming up. See, in Europe, and especially next year in Europe, they got the European elections, and they're saying a third of the German people are going to vote for the AfD in the European elections. And so the ruling elite in Germany is in panic mode because they can see that this sort of control they had over German society is being pulled away, the rug's being pulled from under their feet. And what the East Germans are saying, which is really interesting, Pat, and applies to us, is that they found that in the West there is no real freedom. It's liberal totalitarianism. You have to bow down to the politically correct agenda. And so they're forcing on the East Germans and on the whole of Germany, the whole transgender agenda, gay agenda, anti-German agenda, anti-white agenda. And the East Germans are saying, well, we thought we were going to have freedom. And yet if we criticize these agendas, we face losing our jobs, we face social ostracism, we face police persecution. This is worse than life in communist Germany. This is worse than communism. And they've woken up to the reality that in the West, there is no real democracy because we've always wanted immigration to be controlled, and yet they've imposed more and more of immigration upon us year after year, and they won't stop it. Because the elite have got their own agenda and they're not listening to the people. But in Germany, they say, wir sind das Volk. We are the people and we demand our voice is heard. And they're in open rebellion now in East Germany. I mean, I spoke to an East German a couple of weeks ago and he was keen to talk about the political situation. The East Germans are outspoken. You speak to what they call the Westies, the West Germans, and they've been through this liberal totalitarianism. And they're almost scared to say anything, in case they're called racist or transphobic or anything. But the East Germans just shoot from the hip because they haven't been conditioned the way the West Germans have. And they're saying this whole agenda that is being pushed by the German state, by the Red, Green, and on it, it's called the AMFL, the Traffic Light Alliance. This whole agenda is anti-German. It's against German children. It's against German families. It's against the German nation. It's against German traditions. It's against German heritage. And anyone who challenges it are called a fascist, simply for speaking common sense, simply for saying, look, we want to preserve our identity. The German identity goes back millennia. Germany's a fantastic civilization. I mean, in the East, they always exalted people like Johann Sebastian Bach, the great composer, or Martin Luther, the great Protestant reformer. I mean, Germany's got deep roots. It's a great culture. They're very talented people, very well-educated people, very successful people, great architecture, great, as we know, great cars, they're great engineers. And the Germans won't put up with this. They won't put up, the East Germans especially, with their culture and their nation being thrown in the gutter. It's what's happening here, Pat, but it's on stilts over there. Now, because the AfD have surged in the polls and their popularity, and they've won elections, they've won local elections, they're getting a local network, they've won mayoral seats in Saxony and in Thuringia, and this has really shaken the establishment. And now the media, in alliance with the American deep state, have started to demonize the AfD like there's no tomorrow. And it's all a lie. Because the AfD wasn't founded as a fascist party or even a nationalist party. It was actually a breakaway from the CDU. It was founded 10 years ago to oppose the bailouts of the southern European countries when the liquidity crisis took place. And they wanted Germany to revert back to the D-Mark, to pull out of the euro. And it demanded that Germany continue to have stable financial management. When the German government threw that away, the Germans started to panic and realized that something was going wrong in Germany. And the AfD was emerged to try and correct that. It was essentially, I mean, it went into alliance not with UKIP. They said UKIP was too right-wing. They went into alliance with the Conservatives in the European Parliament. But as the immigration crisis, the migration crisis exploded, they became the voice of the German people to demand that this open door policy, this no border policy, halt, because Germany's got a very generous welfare state. So these people were coming from the third world and jumping onto the German welfare state and milking Germany dry. I mean, it was all sold to the Germans as these people were going to be the workers of the future. They were going to provide the Germans with their pensions, but all they brought was welfare dependency, crime, and crime's a big issue in an orderly society like Germany. I was speaking to Eric, an East German guy, and he told me this. He said, in East Germany, we had no fear from crime. Now, he said, our girls and our wives can't walk across the town once it gets dark because they're going to be pounced on by these migrant gangs. And our children are being bullied by them. And as you say, an AfD official in Augsburg in Bavaria was just being attacked by a group of migrants, and they basically kicked his head down like a football. He's suffering memory loss. And his face, I mean, we've seen the picture, his face was splattered. It's not on. And, you know, and so this is a battle now for the soul of Europe, and it's being fought in Germany. And no one expected that. People, you know, thought it might happen in Italy, it might happen in France, it might happen in Spain, it might happen in Holland, it might happen in Poland, Hungary. The fight back might come there, but it's actually in Germany, because the Germans tend to go to extremes. And the Greens in Germany, alongside the Socialists, have pushed to extreme this whole net zero agenda, and it's crippling Germany. They push to extreme this welcoming of immigrants, and it's destroying German society, and people are just in despair, but they have an alternative. They have a vehicle, the AfD. What's your take on it, Pat?
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. I mean, this is a serious situation. I was doing a bit of research today on the AfD, and I read quite a bit about this net zero green stuff that these reports were saying AfD are the only party in Germany who oppose this green agenda, and they say it's not man-made. They're the only party. So that's one big thing the globalists don't like about them. They also mentioned a few times that they are really opposed to the UN as well, because the UN is the HQ of globalism, basically. And the UN was created just after the Second World War. And the reason Germany's got it so bad with political correctness, cultural Marxism, all this far left extremism is because of what happened in World War II. So, you know, it's going to get very interesting because, I mean, I don't know if they're going to ban them. I mean, I always thought that as soon as a party in Europe does break through and they're on the verge of power, this is what they may do and bring out a full-on dictatorship. But if they do ban AfD in Germany, it doesn't mean it's over for the rest, because we are all still independent countries, and France is knocking on the door. They're literally knocking on the door. They're in power in Sweden. You got Hungary, you got Poland, who are already their government's already in place. So, but the AfD, these pictures of the guy who got beaten up and that, and it's terrible. That's you know, well, the reports I've read, they don't really. Another thing I noticed, Paul, is I was going through a lot of reports, and it's very hard to find anything positive said about them, because it's all mainstream media articles, even Politico, right? I thought Politico was supposed to be a little bit anti-establishment, right-leaning, but even Politico were really having a go at them about one of their top people said that he was going to take disabled children out of schools. I don't know if you've seen that report.
Just
but I'm sure it's been twisted, but I was surprised that Politico were the ones writing this hatchet job. And it makes you wonder, you know, there's hardly anything any of these news outlets are going to speak up for us, for our sort of politics. And we're at a crossroads now, I believe, that the globalists are on their last legs. And I keep saying it to people, it's going to happen in this country. It's literally like they're not going to be able to stop the boats at Dover, and it's going to carry on, and it's going to keep going until a party breaks through, or they go down the road what they're trying to say they're going to go down in Germany, which, you know, that's a very negative thing to do, because they say they believe in democracy and stuff, but you know, and AfD, they're not even that. Their policies are not even that hard line. They have definitely got more hard line, like you said, because initially they just wanted the Deutschmark back. That was their whole thing about getting out of the euro, the monetary euro financial system, and go back to the Deutschmark, because of all the bailouts in Southern Europe, Greece, Portugal, Spain, Italy. They were all being bailed out with billions, and it's basically Germany who's got to like pay for them. And my Greek friend told me the other day that a lot of the ports and seaports in Greece, they are paying rent to Germany to use these ports. And so the euro, the EU's in a mess, and they know that Germany is the flagship. So if the AfD get anywhere near power, the EU's finished. We know the EU's finished anyway, but it is looking very interesting.
Well, there's a few other factors there, Pat. One is the role of Twitter, because the AfD have become massive on Twitter, and if you using that very successfully as a vehicle to promote themselves. I mean, they upload videos constantly, announcements, and that's how they're getting their message out. You know, everything is going through Twitter or through the social media. The Germans technically are very accomplished, so they're using this social media, this new technology to spread the message, and it's very effective. They've been able to bypass the legacy media, and it's the legacy media in Germany which is calling for the ban. I mean, one of the major publications in Germany, weekly publications, Der Spiegel, which means the Mirror, they're leading the calls to ban the AfD. But it's not going to be that easy to ban them, because the CDU, the Conservatives, are very reluctant to go down that road. And of course, there was, I think it was about 10 years ago in Belgium, I don't know if you remember this, Pat, they banned the Vlaams Bloc, the Flemish party.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So all the Vlaams Bloc did was relaunch themselves as the Vlaams Belang, moderated a few of their policies, and they're now leading the field again. You can't suppress these things. You see, if the people are alienated from the powers that be, if the people are discontented, if the people are not satisfied with what's being offered, they will find an alternative vehicle, one way or the other. And so you can't simply, in a democratic society, you can't just ban dissent. You can try and suppress it and demonize it, and you can use the media to do that. And that's what the German government are doing. But of course, that's what's happened in this country over the last 5-6 decades. They've demonized anybody who speaks up for the British people. They've demonized the British people as being an anti-white agenda. Anyone who stands up for the white people of this country or the indigenous people are being demonized. But this has gone beyond that, in the sense that there's anti-whiteness now built into the mainstream media. Always non-whites are presented as victims and whites are presented as villains. And this is in the education system. And this leads to attacks. It's led to thousands upon thousands of attacks on white people, on white, especially youngsters, in Britain. Stabbings, muggings, rapes. We know this. And it's all brushed under the carpet by the mass media. So people are very skeptical of everything they hear now. I don't know if you've seen this song in America that's just burst through over the past couple of days, Pat. Rich Men North of Richmond.
No.
By a guy called Oliver Anthony. He's written a song, Pat. You've got to catch this song, and anyone who's watching this needs to catch it. How many views has it had in the past week? He's a new artist, and it's about the way they mistreatment to the American people. How many views has it had on social media?
15 million.
100 million. I've never known anything like it. It's gone ultra viral. Get into this song because it's become the voice of the alienated American people, and it talks about the politicians don't look after the minors. They go to islands to abuse minors, kids. It's pointing the finger at Biden, and it's just it talks about the tax and what the rich men north of Richmond. North of Richmond in America means Washington, D.C. The rich men north of Richmond are the political class in Washington, and how they're screwing the American people. And there's an anger in the song that just resonated right across America. And you see, what they're doing in Germany with the AfD trying to ban it is what they're doing to Trump in America. They're trying to use the state lawfare to stop political opposition. But you can't do that. Not in a democracy. People won't be silenced. And the voices are going to rise up and they're going to articulate the way the people feel. And this same in this country. We have an opposition, the Labour Party, that doesn't articulate the way the British feel. They're not even interested in the British. We see these opinion polls saying the Labour Party's got 40% support. And then we get the by-election and they lose the by-election because there's no real support for the Labour Party. If there's any alternative there, if anyone exposes them, that blancmange will simply collapse. And this is why we need activists at local level. We need to challenge them at every turn. Now, what are you doing locally, Pat?
Let me get to that in a minute, Paul. I just want to go back to the anti-white agenda. So I got a strike on Twitter about a week ago, and the video that I didn't even upload the video. It wasn't a retweet, but you can now forward on videos from other people's Twitter page, and it will say that it's from their page. So it clearly was not my video. Anyway, this guy was in a petrol station, a white guy, and then he started arguing with a black guy. The white guy walked off, and then the black guy started kicking his vehicle, and the white guy pulled out a gun and shot him.
So in America, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was in America, yeah. And basically, I got a strike for that. I didn't even say anything about it. I didn't even say it was good or bad. And they said to me, "This is extreme violence. This is not. This is gory or something." I'm sure the word "gory" was in it in the email. And they said, basically, so I got a strike for that. And I don't know if you have seen this other video going around. This poor old lady, white lady, she's like 60 years old, and she's been repeatedly stabbed by a black man. And it's one of the most horrific videos you're going to see. And that's been up, and it's allowed to carry on like that. It's just like, so violence against white people seems to be allowed, but violence against ethnic minorities is not. And it is clear as day that is what is going on. And like you say, the avalanche of propaganda coming out of the media, they always go crazy when there's an ethnic minority victim. But when there's a white victim, it's silence. And where is this at? Where's the root of this? Where is it coming from? So there's definitely an agenda there, and I just can't believe that I got a strike, because I was going to appeal it, but I just couldn't be bothered. So going back to the local campaign, I have been out today campaigning. I've been very, very busy today. To be honest with you, I've been out leafleting every day for the last 4 days, because I've got to get my ward leafleted. And once I start, I just can't stop. I just got to go every day until it's done. And today I was out leafleting, and I bumped into a few of the electorate. I met one guy who votes for me, and he said he's going to vote for me again. I said, "Would you get on a postal vote for me?" And he said, "Yes." And this is what we have to do. When you get people who are definitely going to vote for you, you must get them on a postal vote, because on the day of the election, their mum may become ill and she lives somewhere else in another city, and they're not going to be in town to vote, or they might become ill on the day, or they might be on holiday and just didn't realise it clashed with the election. So you get them on postal votes, and 3 weeks before the election, you've got your votes. So that's my plan. I'm out talking to the public. I did have another funny interaction with someone talking about Donald Trump, you just mentioned, and this guy, I said to him, "Oh, do you vote in the elections?" He was just going into his door. I said, I gave him a leaflet, and he was like, "No, I don't vote. I don't vote." I said, "Well, I'm not Labour, Conservative, or Liberal," and he was kind of sounded quite interested. And then all of a sudden he said, "What do you think of Trump?" And I was like, "Well," I says, "I don't agree with Trump on everything. Like, I don't agree with Trump's stance with Israel. He's putting American soldiers at risk for Israel. I don't agree with that. Don't agree with him promoting the shot thing. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't want to mention it because we don't want to get a strike. But then all of a sudden he's gone into one, this guy." And he's gone, "No, he's a liar. He's a liar. It's obvious. It's been proven. He's a liar." And then he said to me, he's reading it all in the Times. And I just thought, well, that's mainstream media. But I said to him, "Look," I said, I'm not campaigning for Trump. You just asked me, like, what do I think of him? And it's amazing that some people are just, Trump does bring up quite a strong reaction, whether they like him or they don't. And he said to me, "Oh, he's been done for rape." I said, "Well, why is he not in prison then if he's been done for rape?" And I was like, but anyway, at the end of it, he said, I said, "Okay, no problem. Have a nice day," and that was that. But all in all, it was a positive day, and I'm getting into my campaign. It's not easy. Got to get 5,000 leaflets out in my ward. Got 8,000 voters. I only campaigned for 2 months last time, and I got 214 votes. And I was so surprised by the vote I got in my ward. That's why I've decided to go for it again, because I didn't realise there are so many Indigenous Cockneys still living in Covent Garden, Holborn. And they're the people who was voting for me. Not only them, I had Muslims vote for me. Another Muslim guy I know voted for me, because they're sick of it, all this mass immigration. They want it stopped. They want the boat. They were telling me, the Muslims were telling me where the hotels were, where all the dingy people were in Holborn, which I didn't even know. And they're all seething about it. So the National Housing Party is a perfect vehicle to gain support. Even if the Muslims don't vote for us, we need to get them away from Labour and explain to them that Labour don't give a crap about them. Because
Ulysses issue is a big issue for the Muslims, isn't it? I mean, the weird thing about Germany is that this guy who's been attacked is actually Slovakian. He's not even German. And at the AfD, I've got huge support from immigrants as well, who are sick of the whole green agenda and actually don't want open borders neither. So, I mean, it's like we're being demonized constantly, but we're just speaking common sense. We're just asking that the government put our own country first, just like a father puts his own family first. We're not here to provide for the whole world, and it's bankrupting us. But there was just a comment there from Sue, was it Summertime Sue, who said she'd rather go back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s. She's not happy with the present day. But that is, in another way, one of the slogans of the AfD, back to normal, let's be normal again. Because the whole left-wing agenda, the whole government agenda now is just to destroy normality and promote something new, this woke agenda, which is sick, really. People, it's not coming from the people. The people aren't demanding transgender. The people aren't demanding that their kids face sexual perversity in school, or, that we have open door immigration policy and the whole critical race theory, which demonizes white people. The people don't want that, but the governments are pushing this. It's all being pushed by globalist institutions. You've mentioned the United Nations, and all the offsprings of the United Nations, all the NGOs, non-government organizations. And our government has gone along with it. And they're not listening to the British people. They're listening to the globalists. They're listening to the international billionaires, the international organizations like the World Health Authority, or the
Yeah,
World
but then,
Bank.
when you said the word woke, woke is just a repackaged name for cultural Marxism. That's all it is. Because they realise that their time's running out and they're desperate, and they're coming out with these new labels to put on their propaganda and their equal society, whatever that is. And like you say, people are just so sick of it, and it's just a failed experiment what they're doing.
Well, cultural Marxism isn't even cultural Marxism anymore. It's just nihilism now. It's just destructive. It's about the destruction of our civilization and ruin everything that we've ever achieved and ever produced. And so people, they're smelling a rat and they're thinking, why is this happening? Why is no one listening to the common man anymore? Because the political parties are being bought. Labour and the Tories are just two cheeks of the same backside. We need new voices. We need populist voices. This is why the AfD has become so strong. This is why the National Housing Party is so important in Britain, because we are the only people who are speaking common sense and have the policies to get out of this mess. And we're campaigning locally. We're putting up candidates and we're campaigning to get them elected. And we're calling on other people to join us. We have a network now across the country. Over the past year, we've built up great strength. Now, the AfD has taken 10 years to get into this position. We don't have 10 years. I mean, if Labour get back in power, they will radicalise the whole agenda, and the anti-white agenda will go up to the hilt. It'll be really difficult to live in this country. But what's in the background and what's undermining all these people is why they're terrified of Donald Trump, why they're terrified of the AfD, why they're terrified of Marine Le Pen, is that the economies of the West are in meltdown. They've got huge borrowings, huge debt, which they can no longer finance. The welfare state, especially with all the immigrants jumping on board, is now sinking. And they don't have the tax base to sustain it. And so the cost of borrowing in this country now is draining the finances of the Chancellery. It's draining our strength. And this is the same in Germany. So the government are having to impose more taxes on business and on working people, and the money isn't there. This is why we're seeing the inflation now, the inflation in the West. And they're having to put up interest rates. So quantitative easing is over. The property bubble is burst in America. It's about to burst here, and it's going to be a bloodbath. So there's tough times ahead. So they're trying to head off the growth of these populist parties before they become the voices for the common man, the ordinary people. See, the people's voice will not be suppressed. Once we're hating too much, inflation has hit us too hard. So far, the government's been able to finance it, but that's not going to continue because the debt is too high and the interest payments are going up and up and up. So there's a crisis ahead. You can see it. There's a recession ahead. It's just over the horizon.
Yeah.
So go on, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we have not mentioned in this discussion yet is the withdrawal of Christianity from Western civilization. And Paul Evangeli in the chat reminded me there. Hello, Paul, another one of our members there. So yeah, it's no coincidence this is all happening because we was a solid Christian country, and when we was a solid Christian country, we were very strong, very successful, very innovative, and we had the British Empire. All this trans stuff going on in schools, it's directly linked because they're saying these things in schools to people, and if you're not a Christian, or even if you're not a Muslim, who's to say it's not the correct what they're saying? Humanity needs a leader, and that is Jesus Christ. And humanity needs someone to follow. And we need a book, a manual to keep society on the right track, and that's the Bible. It's very obvious, and that's why we've got a Bible study once a week in our party. It's very successful. Lots of people come into it every week. So if anyone's watching, anyone listening wants to join our Bible study, with Paul Rimmer preaching. Paul is an exceptional speaker and has a real gift from God, speaking the gospel. Get in touch with us. You can email me, patrick.mcginnis, my last name spelled McGinnis, at nationalhousingparty.uk. Our Bible studies every Wednesday, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Usually get around between like 6 and 10 of us in the study, and it's just for an hour. It's not open to the public, so don't worry about that if you're worried about that. But tomorrow's going to be a good one. And do you think Europe and Germany will re-embrace Jesus Christ, Paul?
You need a foundation for any society. One of the reasons Russia is proving so tenacious in this conflict with the West is they've returned back to Russian orthodoxy, and they returned back to their family structures and to their traditions. What the Christian message taught us was simple: the difference between right and wrong. It was written in stone on the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Honor your mother and father. Love the Lord your God. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Create families. That was a spiritual, it was important.
One of the biggest things at the moment, the biggest dishonest things at the moment is they're saying that men can change into women, and they're forcing it on people. Like, people are getting arrested for saying, well, actually, I don't agree with that. It's not true that man is saying he's a woman. He's not. And things like that. And that's just one form of dishonesty. Like you say, Christianity taught us the difference between right and wrong. And it's all over the place. Everything on the mainstream media, whatever they're promoting, it seems to be the opposite of what it is.
We've got to hold on to what was wholesome. What is healthy? We want to have a healthy society. We want to have a society with a future. So therefore, we need children. As soon as in 1967, Harold Wilson really destroyed Christianity in this country. He legalized abortion, the murder of preborn children. He legalized sodomy, and so therefore corrupted sexual relations. And he made divorce easy, so he undermined the family. And we saw the march of feminism, which has led to the destruction of the family. All of this come from cultural Marxism, but it was downstream from cultural Marxism. It became a sort of nihilistic agenda to destroy us. And it destroyed the family. We saw a collapse in the birth rate. We saw what I call the great sterility. We become almost sterile as a nation. The birth rate collapsed. And into this vacuum has come mass immigration, multiculturalism, and the replacement of the indigenous population with third world hordes. And so this has all been planned. This is all the clergy plan. It was all hatched in the 1920s. It's a long-term plan to destroy the West by those who want to dominate the world. And so the citizens of the West, active citizens, Christian people, they saw them as their enemies. Now, they demonize us as Nazis, but the Nazis were not Christians. The Nazis turned away from a lot of scripture. One of the scriptures says, thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt, do not covet. The invasion of other countries is not part of the Christian message. The Christian message is about creating a healthy society, a positive society, and a fruitful society. It's all good. This is the good. God is good. And by kicking God out of the schools, out of our families, and replacing it with all this woke nonsense, we brought in what is bad, what is decadent, what destroys. And we're seeing the fruit of this. This is nasty fruit. This is bitter fruit. And we're living on the heritage of our past. We have a great past in Britain. We were as Pat said earlier, a very successful Christian nation. We were a light to the whole world. We brought a message of hope and progress to the whole world. And the remnant of that remains. I believe fundamentally the British can return to their traditional way of life, but we need leadership. I mean, we put so much faith in the Conservatives. I mean, Margaret Thatcher, she spoke out a Christian message, but the present day Conservatives, they're not conservative. They're ultra liberal. They are woke. They are cultural Marxists. They are nihilists. That means they want to destroy what is good. So they're a waste of time. We need a new voice. This is why the National Housing Party exists. We need a new vehicle for the people of Britain to demand we return to our roots and we save our nation. This is what Putin's doing in Russia. He's saving Russia by returning to their traditions. Don't forget, the communists almost destroyed Russia. But Russia today is finding its soul again. This is about the soul of a nation. And we must find our soul, and we've got to find it in our traditions. We've got to move forward. I mean, there are changes that we'll have to embrace, but we've got to keep our roots. You see, the left, and now the Conservatives as well, they want to cut us off from our roots. I mean, I was seeing the guy they put in charge of immigration now is Sajid Javid's brother.
I know.
Another Pakistani Muslim is now in charge of our immigration policy. That's mocking this country, you know. We're being mocked, our people, because there is no immigration policy. There's open door immigration. 1 million came in last year. The Conservatives, they make noises constantly that they're going to tighten immigration, they're going to strengthen our borders, but they do nothing. Because as Pat will tell you, they're totally committed to all these globalist, internationalist treaties which have destroyed the border, taken the border away. You know, the United Nations Convention of 1951, essentially it just opened our border. The European Court of Human Rights, it's just an open door for anyone to come here and abuse us and tap into our welfare system, get a passport and settle here. And we're being colonized, we're being taken over, we're being replaced. And we've got to wake up. What do you think about that, Pat?
Well, the most laughable thing about this whole palaver with Suella Braverman saying she's going to sort out this mess at Dover, she, which is a bit strange for her to say it, but she keeps on maintaining that these people are illegals coming across the channel, but she hasn't got any plan in place to criminalise them and convict them of a crime. You should be convicted of a crime if you're entering our country illegally. And it's all because she wants to protect the United Nations Refugee Convention. So she's saying, oh, we're going to send them to Rwanda to claim asylum there. So there you go. Then they're not illegal immigrants because she's not going to convict them as criminals. So we need a deterrent. I've said it before. We've had Albanian murderers been deported twice, 3 times, and they come back in. And just catching someone and then deporting them is not a deterrent. You know, you try and get into North Korea illegally and you'll know about it, that you've committed a crime. Yeah. And that's what it should be on any country's border. Anybody illegally entering our country should be punished severely so it puts other people off from doing the same. That's what a deterrent is. So we would introduce a 3-year prison sentence after we'd left these refugee conventions. And then I would even suggest, once we've made it clear it's illegal, you're going to get 3 years, any boats will approach our waters and are told to stop, and if they don't turn back, I think they should be sunk. That's what a real border is, and because they're just letting them come across. Like, there's hundreds of these dinghies just coming across. We need things in place. We need punishments and deterrents at the same time. Otherwise, it's never going to be.
There's something going on, Pat. It's a conspiracy. By the national government, by the globalists. I mean, these boats should be stopped in France. The French police should simply deflate them and stop them from sailing. I mean, France is guilty here.
Let me ask you this question, Paul. Let me ask you: if you was a customs officer on the beaches of Dover and you saw 100 Africans get in a dinghy and they're about to set off to France, are you going to stop them?
Well, of course, I mean, it's in the French national interest to push them over here. But that's not the way nations work. The thing is, these people are criminal invaders. It is a mass international crime that's taken place. And we're the victims. They're stealing our money.
But they're using the refugee laws to get in. That's how they're doing it. And we need to educate the public, tell them we need to come out of these refugee conventions and make it clear to the world, no more refugees for citizenship or housing. You're going to get punished if you enter our country the same way they've been doing for the last few years. And, because a lot of the public don't realise that they're claiming asylum still. I mean, I still speak to people and they don't actually realise that they're claiming asylum and because of the treaties, they cannot treat them as criminals. And they don't have to have any documentation. That's what the whole point of the Refugee Convention is. If you're allegedly fleeing war, yeah, and people will say, oh, but they're coming from France. But the problem is most of them are Syrian, Eritrean, from Afghanistan, and it is practically 100% success rate claiming asylum from those countries because they are in serious trouble. That's why we've got to make it clear we don't want these people. We do not want them in our country anymore. We are full up and it's a national emergency. So we just need to educate the public that they're claiming asylum and that needs to be stopped. We need to take that off the table. Then we can treat them like criminals.
Well, our government is not doing its job of protecting our borders. Our government is complicit in this invasion, and the opposition, the Labour Party, is even worse. But what is even worse are the mainstream Christian churches. This is one of the reasons why Christianity is on the floor in this country, is the mainstream Christian churches have gone completely woke. They're not speaking up for Christianity anymore. They're not speaking sense anymore. I mean, they're promoting this criminality along with the politicians. But the Bible itself is very clear on these issues. The Bible says, do not allow into your country anyone who curses you, anyone who abuses you, anyone who threatens you, anyone who's a danger to your people. This is in Deuteronomy 23. He says, have nothing to do with these people. Don't even pray for them. Get rid of them. Stop them. And this is just practical common sense. Why would you allow into your country people who don't come to contribute, but come to bleed you dry? People who are criminals to the core just to arrive here. They don't come through legitimate, what I regard as legitimate channels. And then we've seen this avalanche of sexual attacks on our young girls. That is totally unacceptable. What has been allowed to happen in this country, especially since Tony Blair in 1997, is a national tragedy, really. It's absolutely disgusting. And we, the British people, we've tried to correct it. I mean, 1 million people voted for the BNP, 4 million voted for UKIP, but we need to raise our voice again. Do not despair. Get organised. Join the National Housing Party. Get active. We have to fight back. We have to have the backbone, because it's only we, the people, who can stop this. But we're not alone. Across the world, from Trump to the AfD, all over Europe, all over the world, really, people are rising now to reclaim their countries. There's a resurgence of faith and tradition and nationalism, and it's going to come here. That's why we've created this vehicle, the National Housing Party. We're going to be the vehicle which rallies the people of Britain and saves this nation. That's our goal. And that's what. Go on, Pat.
No, I mean, it's really difficult on the doorstep because, like, us two people today said to me, it's all futile. There's no hope. And like you said, Paul, things are changing rapidly in Europe, and things are going to change here. The establishment are really nervous, and they know, something's going to happen politically. It's unthinkable what's happened in France. Yeah, Marine Le Pen has literally destroyed the mainstream parties, what have been in control for about 100 years in France. This is how big this is, yeah. And they parachuted Macron in to defeat her the first time, which they did. Then he managed to win the second time, but she's now got 79 MPs in the parliament. And they are banging trouble. The globalists are on the verge of losing France. They're on the verge of losing Germany. And it's going to happen here as well, because all this fake news media, the cultural Marxism, the sex education in schools, the disgusting perversions they are taking into the schools now. It's people are just fed up, and it's going to happen in this country, but we need to be ready for when the vacuum happens. That is why people need to join a party, and the best vehicle to get in there is the NHPUK. So the biggest problem is housing. Everyone's affected by housing. The immigration flood's not going to stop when the Lib Lab Con are still in power. And council seat by council seat, we can get this country back, in my opinion. And you got Reform and Heritage. They're all on one side. They're all kind of pushing against it as well a little bit, but they're semi-establishment. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because NHPUK is one of very few parties who openly say they want to stop immigration and leave the UN, leave NATO, leave WEF, leave the WHO, leave the IMF. We are an anti-globalist party. We're Christian nationalists. We want civilization restored to the UK, Paul.
Well, over the next 2 years, the whole globalist agenda is going to unravel. It is not sustainable. These levels of immigration are not sustainable. As you say, we don't have the houses anymore. We don't have the financial wealth to sustain it. We're in huge debt, trillions of pounds of debt. The American economy is in tens of trillions of dollars in debt. The interest payments are going through the roof. The economic growth has slowed and is actually going to go into reverse. That means that the money isn't there anymore for these agendas. And of course, they've got this war now. Today it's against Russia. Tomorrow maybe against China as well. And of course, the Islamic world, the Saudis and the Iranians have turned their back on America. India has turned its back on the West. The globalist agenda is unraveling. And we're going to feel it in this country. And they're going to feel it across Europe. And the money isn't going to be there. People are going to be hitting the pocket. I mean, it's hard to stare someone when the stomach's full, the French always say. But when they're under pressure, when they realise the government doesn't care about them, the government is more interested in pleasing the globalists and pleasing foreigners than it is looking after its own people. People, the penny's dropped. People realise now that the only way we're going to survive is if we assert ourselves, if we, the people, rally. We've got to form our battalions, our networks, our parties. That's our only hope. No one's going to come on a white horse to save us. In country after country across Europe, North America, and in the East, populist parties are gaining power and gaining momentum. Yeah. We need that in Britain as well.
Yeah, well, looking at AfD's policies, the reading I was doing over the last couple of days, all their policies, we've got them. Anti-green agenda. We want to scrap the ULEZ, scrap LTNs, scrap all the carbon targets. 2035, they've got a policy to say that all houses are going to have to be carbon free by 2035. This is insane. All new vehicles are going to have to be electric by 2030. This is insane. We're against immigration, obviously, and there's a big thing about the sexualization of children in the schools as well that the AfD are quite big on, and we're in agreement with all of that. So it's happening right across Europe. Do you think, Paul, that they will manage to ban the AfD?
No, because it's got strongholds. In East Germany, it's now the leading party. So if you ban the AfD, you disenfranchise the East Germans. And the East Germans, as I said earlier, their slogan is "Wir sind das Volk," we are the people. They rose in rebellion against communist rule. They have a tradition of sticking together and fighting their corner. And they're not going to allow the AfD to be banned. Even if they do try and ban it, even if they get partially successful, the AfD can just reform and regroup. But it's speaking for the people. See, if the people are angry and the people want change, and the established parties won't listen to them. The people are going to form their own vehicles one way or another. We will not be silenced. And when it becomes really vital, really critical that the people assert themselves, the people will wake up. I mean, because in the West, we've had it easy since the post-war period. We've enjoyed prosperity. We've enjoyed security. We've enjoyed democracy and freedom. They've been taken away from us now. The people are only just waking up to that. That our prosperity now is just a house of cards. It's based on debt. That our security is gone. By destroying the border, we've just let millions of criminals into this country, and there's a danger of civil war at any time. We know there are cultures amongst us which will not integrate and have got their own agendas. The democracy and freedom that we thought we had is being taken away from us. It's only Elon Musk, really, and Twitter have allowed us freedom of speech again, because we have a politically correct police force. I mean, under Labour, it was ferocious. I was taken to court 3 times, supposedly for hate speech, but just for speaking common sense. Of course, I won my cases. But when Labour get in power, they will try and criminalise political thought again. You cannot criminalise people's thinking. We're a free country. We have this deep tradition of being freeborn Englishmen, freeborn Britons, and we will speak our mind. Now, a lot of people are intimidated, but it's all based on cowardice because they can't enforce this. Speak your mind. People are scared of losing their jobs. Stand up. Be defiant. We will overcome.
Someone in the chat. Sorry, Paul. Do you want to finish what you're saying?
Go on, go on, Pat. No, go on.
No, someone in the chat. Like, I forgot to mention about the Blackwall Tunnel. We've done an epic banner drop at the Blackwall Tunnel, and incidentally, the bridge we hanged our banners over at the Blackwall Tunnel Southern Approach, they've actually got rid of that bridge now, and they've replaced it with another bridge where you can't put banners over. Wow. That's quite funny. But they've announced that they're going to start charging people to use the Blackwall Tunnel. Blackwall Tunnel is probably one of the busiest tunnels in the UK. And it's just never ending, these taxis, Paul. You know that tunnel we went under when I came to Liverpool that time?
Tunnel. Yeah.
Is that, do you have to pay to use that?
Yeah, it's gone up. I mean, the guy got elected, Steve Rotherham, as the City of Liverpool regional mayor. He said he was going to reduce the prices on the tunnels. He put them up. They're supposed to be £1. He's put them up to £2. Everything is going up and up and up. We're in a cost of living crisis. The bluff does for so long, but now the crap is hitting in the fan. Because the money's not there in the government anymore, and they've got all these obligations. We're giving billions to this rogue regime in Kiev, Zelensky and his mobsters. They're milking us dry. We're giving, the cost of this immigration is milking us dry. We're giving out billions in third world aid. It's absolutely crazy. We can't afford it anymore. We've got to look after our own. We've got to stand up and put British people first in Britain. That is only fair and just. Yeah.
So this tunnel, I don't know how much they're going to be charging for it, but it's just like we got ULEZ, we got LTNs, we got everything's 20 miles an hour now in London. You got congestion charge, we got car tax, you got insurance, you got parking permits, you got parking meters. It's just unbelievable what they're doing. It's just never ending. They just want more and more money for the motorists. And we're a persecuted minority now. There's no doubt about that, especially in London. So, yeah, we're sort of like at the end of the stream now. Thanks for everyone who's watched this stream. Vince, hello, Vince. Summertime Sue, NHPUK TV, John Lawrence, Budgie Burger, Johnny Nutpow, MBE, Marion Moore, Serena, Craig. All right, Craig. Good to see everyone in there. Tic Tac, Blaze. Yeah, it's a good stream. We had 40 people watching. Do you want to finish off on anything, Paul?
We shall overcome someday. I mean, that's the rallying cry of every protest movement. Pat's talked about all these costs being imposed on motorists, but they're hitting the domestic household as well. New boilers, increased council taxes. Everything's tax, tax, tax. If you go out there and bust your gut and work, you're not paid much these days in comparison to the cost of living, but they want more tax, and we're just sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of being taken for a ride in this country. We're sick and tired of seeing our quality of life undermined, our services being warped, and our country being invaded. Listen, guys, wake
just
up,
one more thing.
join the fight back, join the National Housing Party.
Join the National Housing Party. We're active. We're about to embark on 2 campaigns, one in Leicester, one in Merseyside. We do need money. If you can contribute, you can donate on our website, nationalhousingparty.uk. Just even by joining the party helps us greatly. It gives us motivation that we know people are behind. We had a London black taxi driver join the other day, which was nice. So we're getting people joining all the time. We're a growing party. There's a lot of interest in our party, and it's the perfect vehicle. So stop moaning and come and join us and get involved.
Amen. No surrender. We will win.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot,
guys.
Paul. Cheers, guys. Thank you.